Hello there folks, and welcome back to the Chap's Guide. My name is Ash, and I am your host on this journey through men's style, self-development and personal grooming. Now, one of the things we like to do on the channel is to do some product reviews, and today is a product which is iconic, it's highly desired, and it is, you've seen the thumbnail already, it is this Rolex GMT Master 2, often called the Pepsi because of its coloration. Now, the Pepsi has been around since the mid-1950s, when Rolex introduced the GMT range of watches in collaboration with Pan American Airlines, because the airline contacted the Swiss brand Rolex and said that they were seeking a wristwatch which could be worn by their pilots and aircrew, which would allow them to keep track of more than one time zone at the same time. Just by glancing down at the watch, you don't have to do any mental arithmetic, you have the ability to tell the time in two time zones instantaneously. And this is the resulting piece of work which came from that, the Rolex GMT Master 2. Now, it's been on a journey, obviously. It doesn't look exactly like that original model from the 1950s. This particular model was released in 2018, and it is fair to say it has become very iconic. Its reference number is the 126710 BLRO. The BLRO standing for Bleu Rouge, meaning the French words for blue and red. And these are part of the distinctive features of this watch. Now, since that time, this watch has become one of the most popular watches in the Rolex catalogue, desired by many, difficult to get hold of to a degree, we'll talk about that. But why don't we have a look at the watch close up first of all, and then we'll have an idea of perhaps more of its vital statistics. So here it is. This is it, of course, the little GMT Master 2 Pepsi variant. Blue marking the nighttime hours, red the daytime hours. And of course, that Cerachrome bezel is what really draws the eye to people. When you look at this watch, this is what you see, the colour. The red and the blue, somewhat unusual on many watches. Now, this watch, 40mm across the dial and 12mm in depth. So a fairly large watch, depending on the size of your wrist, will depend whether this is a watch which really fits you. Looking down at the dial, Cyclops date magnifier, and makes it a little easier to see the date. When you look directly down at it, not my personal, love on a watch. The magnifier, it does distort the hands for a little bit of each hour as they're passing over that magnifier, and of course you can't see the date at that time, but does its job. But a distinctive, a black dial underneath, and the hour markers and the hands are picked out in white gold. Now, you can see quite clearly there that GMT hand just by my thumb, which is sort of an arrow on the end with a red shaft, which tells us, if you look at the time there, what the other time zone is, because that hand takes 24 hours to make one circumnavigation of the dial, whereas of course your normal hour hand takes 2. So looking at the bezel in conjunction with that hour hand, that GMT hand, you're able to see exactly what the time is. So very practical in this other time zone. Again, triplock crown. See the crown on the crown on the crown, yes, of course. There are 3 little dots which tell us this is triplocked, which means there are 3 separate gaskets between the outer watch and the inside to repel water, which gives us 100 meters of water resistance. So there we go. This particular watch has the Jubilee Bracelet and the Oyster clasp, attractive clasp. Pop open the safety keeper, opens it up, fully milled clasp, and of course it has the adjustable easy link, which means you can add an extra 5mm to your watch's bracelet size in the summer if your wrist swells up, or whatever situation you find yourself in. So a simple, ordinary, everyday, wonderful GMT watch. So how does the GMT wear on the average guy's wrist? Well, for reference, I have got a 6.5-inch wrist, which is, fairly low average size, I would say. I'm not a huge man. I'm only a medium proportioned individual. And because of that 40mm dial, 12 millimeters in depth. This watch is a nice easy wearer. 48 millimeters from lug to lug means, this will fit on most people's wrists, no problem at all. And as I say, it is comfortable. You can wear it all day long. But it also has a wrist presence. It's certainly, with those colours, the red and the blue, the BLRO stands for bleu or bleu rouge in French, meaning the blue and the red. Those colours stand out. It makes the watch playful. It's attractive on the eye. You infrequently see red on a wristwatch, and it does draw your attention. And the blue and the red themselves, they're perhaps not the most vivid versions of blue and red. The blue, in certain lights can look navy or even black. The red, certainly on the darker element of the scale of red. So it's not super flamboyant, but certainly those colours draw the eye. Now the dial is easy to read in pretty much any light configuration, because it's nice large dial, it's black, and it has nice large clear hour markers. In the nighttime, the luminescence in those hour markers, Rolex's version of luminescence, Chromolite, it glows a magnificent blue in colour, and it is easy to read and long lasting. I keep this on the bedside table. When I look over, I pick it up in the middle of the night to check the time. You can read this at any point during the night. So yeah, very easy to read and a very comfortable daily wearer. Now, I think it would be fair to say that the GMT Master range is probably one of Rolex's most successful series of watches currently available, and they have many watches in different configurations that you can choose. And there is, of course, the two stainless steel versions, being the Batman, which is the BLNR, which is the blue and the black version of this watch, and then, of course, the Pepsi, the red and the blue. These tend to be the ones which draw most attention, and certainly the Pepsi favoured by many celebrities. Of course, it was famously worn by Tom Selleck's Magnum PI character, and he still is in the current version of Magnum on the television series today, still wears a Rolex Pepsi. But also over the years, many other stars and celebrities have selected the Pepsi. Sylvester Stallone, Daniel Craig, to name but two of the most famous actors. And I think it's because of that iconic status of that red and blue configuration. This is where the GMT all began. Yes, it's true to say that the root beers, the black and the brown, they are equally as striking, equally as beautiful. I have to say, I own one myself. But there is something about the blue and the red. It is cheerful, it's bright, it is invigorating when you see it. It's not something you see every day on the wrist. Of course, there are many pretenders. Pretty much every watch brand has a Pepsi version of a dive watch in its catalogue somewhere. But nobody really pulls it off like the original, the Rolex. And I have to say, it is a very enjoyable watch to wear in pretty much any situation. Now, one of the things which certainly drew me to this watch was its GMT complication. Because if you're like me and you have friends abroad, or maybe you travel in different time zones regularly, it's nice to have the ability to glance down and check what the time is instantaneously. You don't have to do any mathematics in the mind. You just look down and you can see straight away it is 4 o'clock in that time zone. You don't have to subtract 5 hours or add 5 hours. It's there straight away. At the end of your eye, you can see it immediately. And that is perhaps one of the reasons why this watch is so popular. It has a usable complication even in the modern era. Perhaps this is where it has an advantage over things like the Daytona and some of the other watches which, to be fair, they have an obsolete complication. If you're going to time something to that level of accuracy, you probably wouldn't choose a mechanical watch to do so. You would go digital. Yet, the GMT simple, easy to operate complication is something which is very relevant and valid in the modern era. Now, another one of the things you need to know when you're seeking to buy a GMT Master 2, particularly in this Pepsi version, is it is available in two different bracelets. You can either have the Jubilee, as I have here, or the Oyster bracelet. It's a matter of personal preference. Of course, the Jubilee is what this watch was released on in 2018, and in 2021, Rolex expanded that to include the Oyster bracelet as well. Matter of personal choice. I actually have a GMT Master 2 with an Oyster bracelet. I've got a root beer, and that is a perfect fit for the two-tone, which I have, because those large central links within the Oyster make it very visible for the gold, so it makes it more attractive, more valid for that. For me, I have a soft spot when it comes to the Jubilee. I have a Datejust Rolex as well, and I love the extra supple nature of the Rolex Jubilee bracelet. There are 5 individual pieces to each link, which means it is a bit more forming around the wrist. You get more articulation, more comfort, and I think it looks rather nice too. As I say, I have a watch with an Oyster bracelet in the same type of watch, another GMT, so it's nice to have 2 watches with different bracelets which look very, very different, even though they are from the same range. But again, matter of personal opinion. I think it is fair to say, though, I've discovered that the Jubilee definitely does not attract anything like the amount of scratches which the Oyster bracelet does, because even in the stainless steel version of this Oyster bracelet, the center links are polished steel, which means they do show all of the little scratches and dents that you pick up. The Jubilee really is pretty good at hiding that, so if that's an issue for you, the Jubilee may be an advantageous choice. So let's talk about the buying experience. I can't do a product review without talking about buying it. Well, the fact is you'll struggle to buy this watch because since it was released or re-released by Rolex in 2018, for a while it wasn't in the catalogue. There were other colours available, and in 2018 Rolex brought out the Pepsi version. And because it is a long-time fan favourite, it immediately attracted a high level of demand. And as a result, it is probably the most difficult of all of the GMT Masters to get your hands on at the moment. And I would foresee that being the issue for something towards the long term, because I think there is always going to be a greater demand for the GMT Master 2 in the Pepsi configuration than is ever going to be available. I don't think you will ever be able to walk into a Rolex store and find one of these on display. There's going to be a long waiting list, and that waiting list can be measured in numbers of years, I have to say. You know, if you were to walk into a store today, you would probably be talking 5+ years. That's even if the authorized dealer will take your order. Because let's be honest, why is it worth them taking an order for a watch they're unlikely to be able to deliver to you? So that's going to be your issue. The watch, because of its high demand and low supply, already trades at roughly twice its retail price. So this watch, with the Jubilee bracelet, costs £7,750. Right? It costs £200 less on the Oyster bracelet, a little bit less because the bracelet is less complicated. So this watch you'll probably be able to pick up on the grey market, so the second-hand or aftermarket, for roughly twice that, £14,000, £15,000, £16,000. It depends on the demand and the supply, obviously. And I think that's going to be an issue for the long time. So if you want one of these watches from a Rolex authorized dealer, you need to be playing a long game. You need to know your authorized dealers well. You're likely to be a repeat customer. You're likely to be somebody who is a preferred customer. So, you know, these are not watches which fall into people's laps. My own buying experience, just so as you know, I bought this watch from an authorized dealer in October 2021, and I was very fortunate to receive this because I didn't even realize I was on the waiting list. Strangest of things, a number of years, 3 years before, I bought a Submariner in this particular ADs. When he asked me the question, is there anything else you'd like, sir? I said, yeah, I'd love a Pepsi, but I know that's never going to happen. And he said, yeah, well, you know, if one ever comes in, I'll let you know. Never expected to hear from them again. 3 years later, I got a call. There's a Pepsi with your name on it in the safe if you'd like to come and collect it. I was there straight away, and the watch is on my wrist today. You have to be lucky and in a position to move swiftly if you're offered one of these. My advice: you're going to get to know your AD very well. You're probably going to be buying other things at that store to be in with a chance for a GMT Master 2, unless you're prepared to go grey market, where you will be paying, I would suggest, probably at least twice the price that the watch would cost you from an authorized dealer. So unfortunately, that's the situation with the Pepsi. If you manage to get one at retail, you get a sense of well, you know, whatever goes wrong, if you fall out of love with the watch, if something goes badly in your life and you need money quickly, at least you have an investment on your wrist which isn't losing money. It's always going to be there for you if you need to cash it in. No watch is perfect, and absolutely, the Pepsi is not perfect. There are pros and cons. In the pro category, what's positive? Well, for me, the positives are definitely the colours, all right? If this watch wasn't red and blue on the bezel, nobody would be interested. It's purely because it's a cheerful, colourful, casual-natured watch. It draws the eye, it's attractive, it's got that iconic status. It's been around a long time. It's associated with, you know, the celebrities that we've talked about because they've been seen wearing these watches. And its practical nature definitely draw people towards this watch. So if you're seeking to buy a Rolex because you want to demonstrate to the world that you're a successful person, you want to flex the watch a bit in public, this is one to choose. Because of the colours, you can see it from the other side of the room. People will recognise this as a Rolex, and you will get comments from people because this watch is so recognisable. So that's worth definitely a pro if that's what you're out there looking for. Maybe not everybody is, but definitely if you're after a flex watch, this is definitely in that category. One of the other pros is its robust nature. This is a Rolex professional wristwatch. It can take on the world. It is built like a tank. It'll be running in 100 years, no problem at all. Your children and their children can wear this watch if you buy it. So its tough, rugged nature is definitely a positive for me. And the other thing, which rounds it all off really, is it could be seen as an investment. Now, I don't believe in investing in wristwatches because there are too many variables. You know, if fashion takes a shift and you've bought this watch thinking it's going to go up in value, there's a chance it may go down. So, you know, it's not an investment, but right now, and I think realistically for the longer term, if you buy one of these watches, it's immediately going to be worth more money than you've just paid for it because of that supply and demand situation. So unless that changes and Rolex suddenly start churning these out in big numbers, which I don't think they're going to do, you're never going to take a loss on your GMT Master 2, regardless of which one you get, but particularly the Pepsi, probably the most sought after, you're safe, all right? You're not throwing money away, your money is safe, and it actually is getting larger. You've got more money after you've bought it in reality than you did before. Now, on the negative side to this watch, the cons, I would say actually one or two of the things I've just mentioned could be negative. The fact that this is a highly casual watch because of the red and the blue means if you're a formally dressing gentleman, this watch may not be the ideal watch for you. Now, if you regularly wear suits and you only intend to own one watch, this watch doesn't pair particularly well with more formal clothing because it's somewhat larger. Obviously, it's a professional watch, but also the colours. It doesn't look great with, you know, your classic two-button, single-breasted navy or grey suit. It's not designed for that. It's a working watch, so it's not the most formal. One of the other things I would say, if you're somebody who is discreet in your manner, all right, you don't like something which is, flamboyant. This watch is, as I said, it's a watch for flexing. So if you don't want people looking you up and down and judging you by the watch on your wrist, which they will do if they see this, you need to be cognizant of that because this is a highly identifiable watch. When people see it, they draw an inference about you. So if you're a man who prefers discretion, probably not the watch for your wrist. And on that note, I would say remember the security situation as well. I would not wear this watch on my wrist around central London because I know there are gangs of organised criminals who would target me to steal that watch from my wrist. It happens every day in the big cities, not just London, but anywhere in the world, because they know these watches are highly valuable. That can be taken off your wrist and converted into cash in any backstreet pawnbrokers or pub where somebody will happily buy this, for a fraction of its actual price. But if it's stolen from you, from a criminal's point of view, it can be quickly liquidated for cash. You need to be aware of that. You don't want to be wearing this watch in situations where your personal security will be endangered because of the watch on your wrist. And the final thing I would say is, because of the popularity of this original watch, so many other watch brands now carry a Pepsi version in their catalogue. Pretty much every watch brand will in some version or another. And they're all out there, the blues and the reds, for everybody to see. Your watch will easily be mistaken for a Timex or some other, or a Seconda, or any of those budget brand watches which make a Pepsi version. Even the Tudor, Rolex's cousin brand, also has a competitor, a Pepsi dialed watch. And they all look very, very similar from across the road, from across the room. So is your watch going to be that distinctive? Is it unique? No, it's not. There are a plethora of other brands which carry the Pepsi version. So it is not unique by any stretch of the imagination. Okay, so let me tell you about my final summing up, my final observations on this piece as I put it back on my wrist, because these watches are meant to be worn. Now, I'm a huge fan of the GMT Master 2 range for all of the reasons that I've recounted here. The fact is, they wear very well, regardless of the size of your wrist, and they are comfortable. They are practical. It's almost unfortunate that they are so popular and they're so difficult to get your hands on, because they are the watch which would be perfect for so many people. If Rolex made 10 times as many Pepsis, I suspect they still wouldn't be able to meet the demand of the public, because this is such a watch which fits the lifestyles of so many people in the modern world. And this is perhaps why they are so popular. They are that practical, do-it-all, everyday watch, which has that neat little GMT complication, as well as looking the part too. So I'm a really big fan. I actually own a GMT Master 2 in the root beer configuration on the Oyster bracelet, as I said, and equally a lovely daily wearer. The gold in that watch makes it a bit more formal. I do wear it with a suit ever so occasionally, not that often, but the Pepsi is a watch which I wear on days when I'm out and about and enjoying life in the outdoors, because it feels at home in situations where life's a little bit rugged, and you can really wear it for what it is, an adventurous timepiece. Now, I suspect that the GMT Master 2 will remain at the heart of the Rolex collection for many years, because it's popular, it sells in any numbers that they choose to make, and I hope if you like the watch, you're able to get your hands on the piece that you desire to. I never thought I would be able to get my hands on a Pepsi, but it's a long game, all right? You make your intentions known to your authorised dealer, you make friends with your authorised dealer. If you love watches, make sure you buy your watches from that authorised dealer. They will get to know you, they will get to trust you, they will understand you're not going to buy that watch and sell it on straight away for a profit. You're going to wear it, you're going to love it. And when you get one, as I have, you will find it is the perfect watch for your ordinary everyday life. So, I hope you have enjoyed this video on the Rolex GMT Master 2 Pepsi. If you have, I would be honoured if you gave us a thumbs up to let me know you've enjoyed the video. If you're not a member of the Chap's Guide community, click the red button, come on the journey with us as a subscriber. And if you want to support the channel practically, you can buy me a coffee. I'll leave a link to the Buy Me a Coffee page in the description notes below. So, until the next time, take care of yourselves, wear your own watches in good health, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon.